If you haven't figured it out yet, I'm not Jerry. I'm Steve Johnson, Director of United Methodist Campus Ministry down at the corner of 6th and Elm, and I am very happy to be sharing with you this morning. The name of my message today is Many Voices, One Lord, but it goes very well with Bible school as well. Everywhere Fun Fair. This week's lessons at Bible school focused on neighbors, even neighbors from around the world. I was glad to hear how you played some games from different parts of our great world. Now, you'd think working at the university, it would be a great place to interact with our everywhere, worldwide neighbors, except sometimes we don't. I'm reminded of a story of what happened to me a few years ago when some of the students from the center where we do campus ministry invited me to come eat lunch with them once a week at McMidas. It was a nice way to get to know them better. It was a way to meet new students in a more neutral, friendly place, and it was great. In fact, I would go for a couple of hours. I would go half an hour before I knew the first student would come. I had a couple staggered that came through, so I met some others, and then maybe stay another half hour. It was really good until I kind of got bored during that first half hour before somebody came in that I knew, and I started playing this game that I was way too good at. And as students would come into the cafeteria, I would play this game with myself where I would try to guess where they were going to sit in the cafeteria. And let me tell you, I was about 90 to 95% right. You could tell with university students by how they looked, how they act, how they dressed. I got very good at telling where they were going to sit because they sat and ate with other people that were an awful lot like them. So sometimes the university isn't that great a place to interact with our worldwide neighbors. However, at United Methodist Ministry, one of the things that I am proud about is we do bring together a lot of people from very different places in our world, or even different subcultures even within our state. Chat and Chew is the main meal, our main activity on Tuesday nights. We serve a free meal, usually whatever's on sale at Dillon's, that's what we eat, that we cook there. And I know some of you bring salad and or dessert some weeks. Well, at this meal on Tuesday nights, we often offer table activities, a little paper activity with questions or things to give students something to do, a way to interact with other people. Well, one of the nights, the table activity was numeric word puzzles. And that may not describe it very well, but I can give you a couple examples. It had things written on it like 13 equals S on the AF, which of course everybody knows means, okay, we can try that again. 13 equals S on the AF. Stripes on the American flag, that's right, very good. So things like that. Or 9 equals P in the SS, okay, maybe 8. Yeah, planets in the solar system. Okay, we were doing things like that. Well, I noticed in the course of the meal and the fellowship that went with it, there were 3 Chinese students sitting at the same table and an empty chair at that table. And I thought, you know, these numeric word puzzles are not going to make much sense to them. So I went over and I sat with them and I chose a couple that I thought, you know, was something that they could figure out that weren't such strange ones like some of them on there were. And we visited and we did a few, and then I thought, you know, I need to ask where they're from. So I asked where each of them was from in China, like I would know what that meant. But, you know, I was just being nice, and I found out that the 3 Chinese students that were there that night were from Thailand, Japan, and South Korea. So it takes a certain eye to understand our worldwide neighbors. We assume way too much. Another thing that's going on, though, in this last year at Campus Ministry is we have started hosting a Chinese Bible study that meets on Saturday afternoons during the school year. And each week we have had 15 to sometimes 30 people that meet for Bible study in our facility on the first floor lounge. And we truly have got some nice relationships and things going on there. I know a couple of people from this church come and help with it. It's actually led by Messiah Lutheran Church just in our facility that's closer to the university. But that has been very, very nice. For a while, I thought we had 2 Bible studies going because they met from 1:30 to 3, and then they started meeting 3 to 5 or vice versa. But what they do is one set of the Bible study is bilingual, and prior to that, they do one that's strictly in Chinese. So some students stay for both, and some come to one or some come to the other. But it's a nice way of getting to know our worldwide neighbors. Another opportunity that we have at the United Methodist Campus Ministry with our worldwide neighbors is our weekly service project, which we call PLAY. And it stands for Primary Language Arts. And what we do is 4 to 6 students go with me to Washington Elementary on Wednesdays after school, and we read books to students who primarily hear another language than English at home. And, we don't offer tutoring, we don't do homework with them, we just give them other experiences in the English language. Well, through this, when you ask me about it, I will almost always say, yeah, we work with Hispanic kids, or we work with kids with Mexico. But what we have learned is through the course of the years that some of our Hispanic kids, even here in Hays, actually come from Puerto Rico. That's a very different culture than those who come from Mexico. And we have even worked with students through PLAY whose parents' home country was Vietnam. So there is more of a worldwide culture going on even right here. So everywhere we can have our worldwide neighbors. We can have many voices all praising one Lord. But even when the many voices trying to praise one Lord are all basically from the same culture, it's easy to argue. You would think Christians weren't that good at arguing. Actually, we're better at it than most people. You take Bible passages like with justice issues, like in the reading we heard from Amos today, or you read in the Gospels like we did in Luke about the roles of women in the church, and you start talking with those kinds of things with Christians, pretty soon a new denomination is going to be formed. And then when we find the church that is perfect for us, that believes just like we do, we have a tendency to become clubby. I once worked at a church where the standard greeting to anyone visiting youth group was, "What are you doing here? You're not United Methodist." Not very inviting, not very neighborly, but I kind of understood what they meant because it was a small town. They knew every other student in their school. They knew who went to church and who didn't and where they went. We learned a new phrase to say to make it more neighborly. At the center, we work with students from many different Christian denominations and cultures, and it's difficult even for us to get agreement on things. Why, even the Lord's Prayer is hard for us. We are never sure of just how many times to say forever and ever and ever. That's if we say the last line of the prayer at all. Then there's the whole sins versus trespasses things, with some people throwing in debts and debtors for good measure. Why, we can't even agree on how many Christians it takes to change a light bulb. I'll give you the latest research here. How many Christians does it take to change a light bulb? Well, with